Hello Internet and welcome to my channel. I'm Henrik Hjelte and this is the story about building a foldable boat. In this video we're gonna make a 3D model of the boat. For creating the model I'm gonna use Blender, which is an open source tool to create models. The reason for using Blender is because it has a plugin called SailFlow that helps you create sails. I will start by drawing the bottom panel of the boat. The bottom panel has a few changes from the first video. The first one is that the length of the boat is shortened to 2 meters and 35 centimeters. This is because it's impossible to ship the plywood sheets with a longer length than that to a private person here in Sweden. The second change is that the curve connecting to the middle panel will have a height of 5 centimeters instead of 3 centimeters. This is one of the first times I'm using Blender, and it has been great having YouTube as a resource to learn how to use it. I first start out using vertices, measuring out distances in straight lines in the X and Y direction. To create the semicircles I need, I use a full circle and then match them up by eye, and then removing the rest of the circle that I don't need. I'm really happy that I actually took the time to learn this new program and spend the time on actually making this. It took way longer than I expected, but it was a really fun journey and I learned a lot of things on the way. I can really see that you can be so much more efficient than I am with some practice and all the hotkeys that I always forget. When you cut down a 10-minute video like this of many evenings of work, it kind of feels a little bit strange with how much work it is to actually do it and how little time it actually takes to look at most of the things that you've done. Now we're getting close to actually having created all the vertices for the bottom panel. I will not show this for all the other panels, but I will just show the result of the panels, but I'm using the exact same process for all of them. Now that we have created all of the vertices for the bottom panel, we will use Alt F to fill in all the faces. That will create faces for us automatically. That will be perfect for when we bend this later on. So we need to have faces that are in the correct direction. And then we just extrude the thickness to 0.6 centimeters because that's the thickness of the plywood. And here you can see the left bottom panel done. Now we will just copy this bottom panel to the right bottom panel because that is exactly the same as this one. And then we will just speed through the process of creating the side panels. That's exactly the same as the bottom panels, only that they are a few centimeters shorter. And then I will just temporarily move them out of the way to give room to create the middle panel of the boat. The middle panel is a very easy part to create. It's just a square that is 7 centimeters wide and 2 meters and 35 centimeters long. So to create the new vertices, I just press E to extrude the vertices and then press X or Y to limit myself in what direction to extrude, and then press in the number for the length to extrude. To create an edge between two existing vertices, you just use F. This is the same command as if you select more than 2, and then it will create a face instead. To be able to bend this part, I need more faces, so I use the loop cut tool after I have extruded the thickness of the part. When you're bending things in Blender, you use an empty called plane axis, and you can select what direction to bend the part in by rotating this part, and that's what we will gonna do. To bend the parts, I add a modifier to the part called Simple Deform, and then I select what empty to bend around. As you can see, I am lucky with the direction that it bends, so I don't need to rotate the empty for this part. So now we have done a rough estimate of what I think the bottom will look like. Now I'm gonna go and make the sides. I will need a lot of tweaking along the way to make sure that everything fits correctly. and I need to go back multiple times and actually tweak this to get everything to fit perfectly. It's very important to get the empty in line with the part and also inside of the part. If you get it outside, it will scale the part, and if you don't get the angles correctly, it might tweak it in a direction that you are not expecting, making the part not fit. After I made the sides later on, I actually had to go back and tweak these bends a little bit, because I rather wanted the little bit of slack in this joint than in the other joint. Now I'm completing this side of the boat by putting on the side panel. This panel will also be bent in the same way as we bent the bottom panel and the middle. When I fit this side panel, I noticed that I needed to rotate it in a way where the top of the side panel was no longer in line with the reference lines. This would make my life a lot harder later on, so I made sure to rotate the entire boat back in a later stage. So now we just create the empty like we've done before to have something to bend the part around, and then move it to the correct place and rotation to make sure that the bend is done correctly for this side panel. Here it seems that I have missed the rotation by 180 degrees, so I just add the number and it will automatically calculate the new value of rotation for me. After some more final tweaking, the entire left side of the boat is done. You can see that there is a small gap of 7 millimeters in the bottom, but that is no problem because it can just be taken up by a compound curve of the panel when I build the real boat, but I can't do that in Blender. The other side is much easier to do. I can just use a copy of everything from the other side and then just tweak the angles to just be inverted. So it takes a lot shorter time. For the rigging, I will use a 6 centimeter diameter aluminium tube with a wall thickness of 3 millimeters. The mast will be 3 meters long. There will be a 1.5 meter long gaff and a 1.5 meter long boom. I make a quick and dirty mainsail here just for looks. I will make a complete episode of designing and building the sail later on. For the head sail, I show you a little bit how the tool works, where you can decide on the luff, leech, base and head, and then the different curves and positions of the curves of the sail. This is just the design part of the tool. You can use other parts of the tool to cut down the sails into panels and then flattening those panels so you get out the shape that you want to cut out of the sailcloth. As with the mainsail, this head sail is just for show for now. I'll make a complete episode where I actually spend some time on this to make sure that they are correct and then create the sails. But as you can see, the sail flow tool is a very quick and easy way of actually putting up the sails. This part that you see here is in real time, so there's no speeding up. Now there's only one thing left to fix, and that's the camber of the bottom side of the sail. And that's the last thing that we will do for the rigging. Now we will spend some time actually making the seating areas of the boat. I want the seating areas to be about 40 centimeters off the bottom of the boat. That will make the seating very comfortable in the boat. The size of the bow seat I just make by eye to something I feel like it has good proportions. In the model here I just extrude the plywood to 6 mm seating. In reality I will need some kind of bracing to make sure that they don't break or bend. The position of the middle seat will have a big impact on the sailing performance of the boat, since it will house the centerboard trunk and stabilize it. It will also be a structural part of expanding the boat when it's in the upfolded position. The stern seat I just make by eye to make sure that it looks good. Now I just fill in the bow and the stern of the boat. This will be built up by mostly the PVC cloth, backed by removable pieces of plywood. And here you can see the fruits of our labor. Thank you for watching and hit that subscribe button, and I hope to see you in the next part.